Right now, the Grand Forks School Board is holding a special meeting, one that could leave an elementary school principal without a job.
Valley News Team's Kirsty Madej joins us now live in studio with the latest on that. Kirsty.
Justin, Stacy, this centers around Ben Franklin Elementary Principal Joshua Mailhot. He's in his second year as principal, and the superintendent is recommending the board not renew the contract. The school board memo lists several concerns about his performance, including inability to follow directives from his supervisor, not maintaining trust, and poor communication. Administrators claim he's unable to understand and implement safety procedures and isn't able to carry out basic leadership functions. We requested the personnel file for Mailhot, and he was given an unsatisfactory rating during the two recent observations. One back in January docked for creating a clear vision for how instruction should be addressed, and another earlier this month alleging he spoke about staff members and district personnel in a negative light, among other concerns which Mailhot does not agree with. He's given ringing endorsements by his former observers, described as warm, caring, and doing a high-quality job. Justin, Stacy?
All right, thanks, Kirsty. If the board votes for non-renewal, Mailhot's employment could end with this school year.
Stay with Valley News Live as we continue to follow this story.